So good morning, everyone. Join us once again for our weekly broadcast here. This is a 30-minute brief look at the market, a bit of update on what's happening in the world of property crowdfunding, and of course our special guests. And today, delighted to have two, almost you could say, YouTube and social media celebrities, we could nearly call them. So welcome, Tyler. Welcome, Rosey.
Hiya. Hi.
Everyone, thanks for having us.
No problem at all. Really looking forward to hearing from you in a few moments. And of course, Mr. John Corey, our resident co-host, international jet setter. 1 week he's in London, the next week he's in America. So how are you, John?
I'm good. I don't think that is jet setting, but anyway.
It's, well, you got to get from A to B, from London to the far side of the world. So I'm guessing you took a jet.
Oh, I did. I mean, it's an extended opportunity to wear a mask is what it is.
There could definitely be an extended webinar on that topic, but we'll definitely not delve into that too much today. So listen, welcome everyone. Once again, let's get straight into our normal routine. So first of all, market update. What I noticed, John, was this article by Tom Hill. And well, I suppose the reality is perhaps beginning to bite in some aspects of the property market. Post some of the measures that were brought in for COVID, particularly stamp duty. And according to this report, recent property transaction statistics from HMRC, so there's been an enormous 52% on month drop off in the last couple of months. So initial takeaway thoughts on that?
What a load of BS. So stamp duty was withdrawn, the special discount, and you would expect that the rush of sales would die off, that the deals would flush through, and therefore if fewer people are buying, you'd have fewer applications. Okay, that's exactly what this says. 52% drop off means less people in line at the checkout. It doesn't mean prices on the shelf changed. It just means less people in the shop. So this whole idea that the market's deflating, how about the queue is shortening?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And we've often talked about how it's easy to make a headline, and a headline is based on a very, very narrow view of the market at any one given time, and there could be multiple factors feeding into that, but you can't start based on a whole analysis of the market based on one narrow piece of data. So Tyler, Rosey, any comment you want to make on that, or any anecdotal evidence in terms of feet on the ground and what your take is on the market?
Yeah, I think obviously this is just saying mortgage approval drop off. I'm actually in the process myself of just finalising my own mortgage, and I'm, as a business director, I'm not the most easy to get a mortgage on, which is always the funny factor. You can raise millions in debt for a development deal, but you can't get your own mortgage. But I've been speaking to a few sort of more specialist brokers, and they're sort of just saying that a lot of the banks are just starting to reposition themselves in the market to slightly tweak their interest rates. I think HSBC already have. So again, it didn't really say anything about the actual housing market. It's more about the lending market, and the banks are just, as they always do, just slightly regrouping and revisiting their offering. I don't think it, or at least around here, the property market is still really like the best it has ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point about the lending side is what's probably skewing the sort of the view of the market. Any comments on, Tyler, you want to make on that?
I think second what's already been said. Until actual physical prices of completed transactions is starting to decline. I think that's the only real indicator of deflation. But yeah, that's my view.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's something that obviously John's trumpeted for. I suppose we're coming up nearly on 19, 20 months of doing these broadcasts. Is that do not base your property investment or development strategy based on newspaper headlines. Not a good source of information when it comes to setting your strategy. So that's that. Okay, in terms of projects, the Herne Bay project is now view deal on the platform, so you can have a look at that project, download the equity offer document. There will be a project webinar probably next week on this, where you get a chance to meet Catherine and the team. Minimum raise on this is 275, maximum is 950,000 on this one. And so it's open for view deal. People can go there, record your interest, and obviously have a look at all the information, which is great. We've also got Aldwick being prepared. That was actually the call we had this morning with Tina and T5 down the south coast. So they're working away in the background, and this will be probably view deal in about a week's time. And we've also got a project from Creation Tech, which is being worked on. They're also working on another one, a private raise behind the curtain. So plenty happening. It's going to be a nice busy couple of weeks leading up to Christmas, and plenty for the investors to have a look at. So John, in terms of our Ask John, this has turned out to be a very popular section that we introduced a few months ago. Been able to pick John's experience and put questions to him that allows him to bring that experience and his own skill set to the table. So this week's question, John, with all your experience and knowledge, why do you not do your own property developments?
So I don't remember where this question came in from, but the obvious answer is because I'm lazy. You know, why do heavy lifting if someone else wants to do the heavy lifting and I can ride along for free, so to speak? And you know, if I'm going to fly across the Atlantic, as you highlighted earlier, then I don't get in the cabin and fly the plane. I let someone else do the hard study and the hard work. The other side of that is you could think of angel investors are typically older. They have been around the block a few times. They maybe enjoy having their evenings and weekends free, and they have a bit of cash. So they want to be in the game, but they don't necessarily want to be the first stringers on the field when it's muddy and ugly. They'd rather be sitting in the stands, drinking or something, cheering on the team, go team. The other side of it is, particularly in markets like today, sometimes the best deal is not the one you find, it's the one that someone else found. So you can have a piece of someone else's deal. It might be a better deal to be invested in. There's no rush to put your name on the door or put your name on the street or whatever. A good return is a good return. And then finally, on a very personal level, my skills, my knowledge, my expertise is in very niche things, and I'm particularly good at certain things. And I've come to learn the things that I'm really not that great at. And running around chasing detail, micromanaging, you know, the detail of a project, and not micromanaging bad, but being on top of all the detail, that's not me. I'm more conceptual, more structuring, more big picture, inventing the future than implementing the present. So, you know, play to your strengths, avoid your weaknesses, have a good team around you, collaboration. Those are the reasons why you might want to do fund someone else's deal rather than do your own.
Yeah, I think that was a good point you finished on there, just the strengths and weaknesses. And if your strengths aren't in what's required to be a good property developer, then it's possibly not the route to go. Again, I think it's a really good point about choice. They've been able to, you know, be in other people's projects if they've found a great project, rather than only been focused on the ones that you managed to find. And that certainly limits the opportunity to be, you know, invest and grow wealth through property. Okay.
A very particular example of this is Tyler and Rosey, as we'll hear soon, have very different backgrounds than some of the other property people that you'll run into, whether it's better at social media, whether it's long-term history, even as younger people with land development and things like that. So do I really want to have to like climb that learning curve, or can I just basically get a piece of their deal and then let them get on with it? Because they got 5 or 10 years of experience already, even though they look like they're 15.
Yeah.
Come on, Tyler, that was meant for you.
His youthful looks.
That's going to, yeah, the picture we'll see in a minute, Tyler, definitely is a smart picture with a shirt and tie, and but definitely a little bit maybe nice youthful looks, which is great. John is envious of going back to that day when he was that young, wearing a shirt and tie, or probably in Silicon Valley they were wearing shirt and ties in those days. Was it long hair to the shoulders, John? Was it
T-shirts? That's how you got all the T-shirts.
There's many. Okay, so before we go straight over to Rosie and Tyler, you've heard a little bit from John there in terms of his extensive background and his knowledge and his skill set and his experience. And John and I are hosting a 3-day live fundraiser bootcamp. This is the 7th to the 9th of December. It's a 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. session. There will be some breaks, don't worry. I'm not saying sit behind a computer for all that time, but very much interactive, very much allowing fundraisers to strategize and plan and learn really all the skills that are needed to raise funds legally. So John, we're up now to literally the countdown really to the event. And we've been doing for a bit of planning in the background. Are you looking forward to it?
Oh yeah, in fact, I was working on some of the slides yesterday, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And coming back to the prior question, this is where I excel, is the sharing knowledge about how to structure deals and how to raise the funding. And it's definitely going to be interesting. By the way, one little tangent, I heard a comment yesterday that there's no such thing as Zoom fatigue. There's just bad meetings. And it's got nothing to do with watching the screen. It's got everything to do with how the meetings run. So we're going to mix it up a bit to make sure that people don't suffer from sitting.
Yeah, and I'm working on a few wee exercises that you can do behind a computer screen just to get the blood flowing a little bit during the day. So yeah, it'll be an interesting time. But for those that haven't booked who want to join, it's 297, and that is for the whole 3 days. The link is there on the screen, so you can screen grab that or take a quick image of it, and you can obviously get your ticket booked. So that's next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7th, 8th, 9th of December, how to raise funds legally. So delighted to bring on now Newman Rose Property Group, Tyler and Rosie. So listen, guys, really appreciate taking the time. I know you're very busy people, and delighted you're able to share with us today. So maybe to kick off, just give a couple of minutes of your two backgrounds up until where you are now with Newman Rose, please.
Yeah, Tyler, go ahead first.
Okay, sorry, I was muted there, I didn't realize. But yeah, hey everyone. So Rosie and I, we've known each other for best part of 10 years at this point, went to school together, and my background is family background. They're in the property world, not so much in the property investment space or the property development space, but more so in the estate agency space. So my dad started off as an estate agent, built up a small estate agency business, my mum on the letting side. And so kind of been involved in property my whole life in that sense, and always been a bit entrepreneurial. I was the one selling sweets in the playground at school and had multiple businesses. And then leaving school, decided property was something I wanted to get more seriously into. And so I did work as an estate agent. I actually worked under the self-employed model, which is becoming more and more popular in the UK, which is identical to how they operate in the US and Australia, where you work under a brand, you're self-employed, there's no salary, it's purely commission only, and you're just paid on results. And explored that, and at the same time I was using money I was earning there, putting into property investments. So I did my first flip project at 18, turning 19 years old. Did one, did another. All the time I was working as an estate agent for the best part of 3 years, and during that I then started focusing on the high end, upper quarter of the market, I called it, which in the Midlands was really anywhere from 500,000 to £2 million. And that just taught me so much about design, marketing of property. Once you've done thousands and thousands of viewings with buyers and you've heard the same piece of feedback 1,000 times, it really gives you this sixth sense of how you can look at a property and the design and know exactly what people are going to like, what they're not going to like, and what the obvious mistakes are, which has helped us massively, even on the project we're working on, where we've redesigned some of the floor plans, some of the layouts, and already we know that's drastically going to add value, just because we've got that eye for it. And so, yeah, back end of 2020, Rosie and I, sort of our paths aligned, where Rosie was stepping away from family business, as I'm sure she'll discuss. And I was at a point where there's only so many 2 and 3 bedroom terraced homes I can renovate without getting too bored. And I've always wanted to get into the larger land developments. And so, yeah, there was an alignment there for us to come together, and both had the same vision with Newman Rose. Yeah, that's sort of my background and how we've got to this point. Rosey, over to you.
Yeah, bit like Tyler said, we've known each other for 10 plus years now. My background, again, a bit of a family background, but with Cassidy Group, the family business, who are developers nationwide. Main focus nowadays on sort of student and PRS, but when I was younger, it was affordable housing. Really, they've done sort of everything, even to obscure things like building like sea life centres and things. So really strange array of properties that have been done in the family name. So yeah, I've just grown up in development. I worked away for the family business for several years as a land agent. So basically sourcing development deals for other people, again, self-employed model, which was great. Went back to the family business after a few years with a big focus on sort of finding their sort of student and PRS sites, help sell a few. The thing is, with the family business, there was only 5 of us with over like 10,000 units in the pipeline. So really everyone did literally everything that was needed, even if it was just going to, the builder's merchant to pick up whatever for one of the sites. You all do whatever's needed, really. But the old man wouldn't let go of the reins at all. So back end of last year now, decided to leave. It was always my intention to leave, just otherwise you're always living under the old man's shadow. So always wanting to leave and establish things in our own right. But Tyler and I already had a business together, the education side, which we might touch on in a sec. We work well together. And as Tyler mentioned, he'd actually already worked with the family business as well, helping sell a lot of the luxury residential things that Cassidy Group had built. So there was already sort of an established working relationship. So it made sense to go into development side together. Both very different skill sets, but I think overall we've got just about what's needed to to get the deals done. And we've just officially completed on the purchase of our first project. And yeah, we're very excited about actually breaking ground next year on one.
Excellent. No, it's interesting, as well as knowing each other for so long, from school days. Then there's the different skill sets and bringing that all together. I think that's always great to see, because obviously those you work with in business, you spend a lot of time with. So it's important to have a good relationship, already established, which always helps. So a couple of questions. So you did mention there, Rosey, about your education side, and I said earlier, you're both sort of very high profile in the world of social media and YouTube, etc. You do a lot of podcasts. You've just started now, and you have education content for quite a few years. So I suppose you've covered it a little bit, but just to maybe like 1 or 2 sentences, what was it about property development? So there's lots of different ways to be involved in property, but what was it for both of you that said, what, this development property is the way we want to go?
I think for me, it was somewhat very little choice with the family background. But no, I do genuinely love property development. I love how people don't realise with development how many moving parts there are, from the initial conception of a deal all the way through to selling it. There's, particularly when you have multiple projects on the go, with different ones at different stages, every day that you come into the office can look completely different to the next. And I've got the attention span of a slug. So, that's what I need, is that variety to keep me interested, versus other jobs. So I don't think there's many other careers that offer it like property development.
Brilliant. And Tyler, any one sort of key motivator that took you into the development? You sort of mentioned getting bigger scale was a factor.
Yes, scale is definitely one factor. I love the idea of designing something from the ground up, where you've got total control over the design and the delivery. And then I just love the deal making side of things, finding the deal, negotiating the deal, raising the finance, managing the delivery, just putting all the pieces together. That's the part that excites me the most. So and designing something, like I say, from the ground up, that's ours, that we've designed. is what we both get super excited about.
Yeah. And John, I don't know if any observations on that. One thing that struck me, and I always enjoy it when people don't just go straight to, well, it's because of the money I can make. I think for both Rosey and Tyler, they both indicated there, it's the thrill of the journey. It's the thrill of being involved in business. It's that challenge as opposed to just, oh yeah, I want to make a whole bunch of money. And John, I'm sure you meet lots of different developers with different motivations, and it's interesting the reasons they've given.
Well, what's refreshing, having known these two for a little bit, rather than maybe the instant comment it's about the money, it's that they actually understand that these things are complex, that any deal, there's relationships, there's detail, there's permissions and coordinations and synchronizations. And as Rosey highlighted in particular, it's a fairly tough business when it comes to all the detail and all the nuances. And then what we'll get to maybe a second is when you add in sort of Tyler's social media background and how the team uses social media, as we see in the corner, that just adds another layer of sort of outreach and maybe complexity and coordination and planning. So it's refreshing to work with people who are, in a sense, at the earlier stage of their career, but they have a wealth of experience already, and they sort of embrace the fact that it's complex and challenging rather than run away from it.
Yeah, and that leads in really nicely to the third point about that, in terms of one of the things that I really enjoyed when I first met Rosey and Tyler was exactly that, in terms of what you might call a modern property developer. I mean, there's so many developers, the whole concept of social media and education around development is just alien, particularly the last generation of developers, if we could call them that. But so few people think about property development the way that Rosey and Tyler think about it and how they've set their model up. So let's just sort of dive into that a little bit. Education, you mentioned, Rosey, is something that you've already been doing with Tyler for a while. So what was it about education that kind of, where'd that passion come from, and what did you see that achieving in your business?
Well, maybe in 2019 now, I feel like I've lost track of years, but I'd been doing sort of one-on-one, maybe mentoring, if you call it, like agents would come to me wanting, me to help teach like their land team, for example, or create a land team. And, I realized I was quite good at explaining how you find sites, the bones of property development. And Tyler was starting to get into like the e-learning space at this same time. And I knew there was no product that, in my opinion, having been within a development company, taught what developers do, if that makes sense, in its entirety. So I just knew there was a gap and a need in the market for, so to speak, like a one-stop shop of property development. What does that journey look like? And Tyler was really the only person I knew that had, when it comes to tech and all of that stuff, it's Tyler in our business that does all of that. And so that's where that collaboration came from, is we just knew that there was a hole in the market to service for property development education. And not only that, it serves as an excellent cash flow business to help us to get into development a lot easier. Otherwise, to be honest, we didn't have our cash flow business, we'd have struggled to be able to fund getting into property development. So yeah, of course it's great to educate people, but not be naive to the fact that it also makes us money to help us get into what we really want to do, which is the development stuff. But as John sort of mentioned, everything we do goes hand in hand with each other. The better developers we are in the current market, the better our education is, because our live examples that we're doing right now can educate our students, and so on and so on. So it's a constant loop. They go hand in hand.
Brilliant. Okay, and maybe Tyler, explain sort of what is it that you do. So just describe, briefly what channels are you most active on, maybe why you chose those channels, and what is it that you seek to deliver?
Yeah, sure. We're all over social media. I think our two biggest channels are Instagram and YouTube, and you'll find us on both by just typing in our names. In terms of the education offering, we have one program, one product that teaches essentially the A to Z of development, very specialized knowledge on each part of the process. It's constantly evolving, and like Rosey said, it's become even more so apparent to us as we're progressing with our own development company, how little and few credible resources are out there for developers. And it's become apparent because, for example, we've had to reach out to people like yourselves, to John, to seek advice and help assist on some aspects of putting our deals together. And that's obviously allowed us to improve the education and, you know, just raise the standards of education, but raise the standards of property development and how property development businesses are run across the UK. Because I'm sure, as both you guys know, there's, especially on the funding side, there's a lot of people doing it in not only incorrect ways, but illegal ways. So yeah, we're passionate about raising the standards in that sense.
Absolutely. One quick question in terms of content. So another thing I struggle with is time for content. I've great ideas and ideas for blog content and ideas for, you know, quick Facebook Live whenever I get the tech managing to work before John smiles in the background there. But, you know, I've got these ideas, but sometimes just creating the time to get content. So how do you guys, you set time aside, or do you a time on the calendar that's your precious time for content, or how do you go about doing that?
We set time aside, but at the same time, maybe what differentiates us a lot in the property education space is that we are actually building a property business full-time as well. And so it's not so much we have to create content and come up with the ideas, it's we're just documenting what we're doing already. So we're going to site, we're doing this, we've got a content team that come with us and document that, and then turn that into assets that we can put online. And so yeah, the way we want to lead by example. We want to document what we're doing, building our business, and hopefully that content inspires others, educates others, and they can get invested in our story and what we're doing. And if they decide they want to take their education further, then they can reach out and explore our offering.
Brilliant. That's really, really helpful. Thank you for that. And as alluded to, you did recently do a raise with us. It was a behind the curtain raise, in the sense that it went only to people that you had on your database as investors. They of course then registered on the platform, viewed the information that had been approved, and made their decision whether or not to invest or not. But do you want to just speak to this project, and any sort of key takeaways from the process, and what any plans you have for the future?
Yeah, so as I sort of mentioned earlier, this is our first official project. We'll break ground on it probably February, March next year. And most of the funding came from the banks as normal, but there was a deficit in the equity needed. And yeah, we'd already, this is a bit like Tyler alluded, the fact that, you know, that there isn't enough available information out there. We'd already found these investors and actually had conversations with them. And then we sort of realized, actually, we need to make sure we're doing this compliantly, which is then well, maybe this deal, we went about it a bit of a funny way, but eventually we got yourselves involved to make sure we took this capital on in the correct way and met all sort of FCA, you know, policies and things. But yeah, we raised 400,000 from 4 investors, and Friday just gone, we actually completed on the deal. Definitely, you know, between us all, there was teething problems, and that was just, oh, well, you know, I had never ever come across something like this. I've helped raise millions for the family business, but never come across anything in this way. So yeah, it was just, as with anything new, a learning curve. And, you know, normally when I'm taking someone through a process, I've done it many times myself and I know it in and out, or in a lot more detail than we knew this. But we're just at the start of our next project, one up north, which is, you know, very similar to this one in many senses. And already it's so much smoother because we've just been through it once. And yeah, it's just, you know, the first one's always the most difficult. But yeah, we got there in the end. Tyler, anything from you?
Maybe just a bit more about the site. It's for 17 units, 5 of which are affordable, 12 of which are 3 and 4 bedroom detached homes that are going to be built to a really nice spec, very nice aesthetic and design. We purchased with outline planning, and the designs we purchased it with were uninspiring, unimaginative are the terms we use, but we've just had the new sort of amended designs back from our architects that we spent a lot of time on, that completely revamped the total look of the site without even making too many drastic changes, but just a few small things here and there. That's all it really takes sometimes. That already we've added a lot of value to the deal. But it's a very similar site to one of the projects Rosey worked on at the family business called The Oaks. So we took a lot of design inspiration from that, which I was also involved in that site as well with selling the units. Yeah. So, you know, I was on the front lines with the buyers of those units, understanding what the feedback was, what worked, what didn't work, all of which we've taken into account on this project. So as soon as we saw it and it came across our desk, we knew it was one we wanted to pursue. And in terms of raising the money, we're in a very fortunate position that because of social media, we are oversubscribed, really. We really didn't have to have many conversations with investors to fund this one, which, you know, means the next one is a little bit more exciting as well. And we do want to work with the right people. So, yeah, very fortunate in that sense.
Okay, thank you. John, do you want any quick wrap-ups before we head towards the close of the broadcast, just on Newman Rose and this project?
I mean, clearly the team has experience. They also have the skills necessary to attract investors, to attract people who want to mimic or follow or learn from them when it comes to development. So it's a very good synergy going on. And they have other projects they're working on. I know I've talked to them about one of the projects, and there's one after that. So there'll be this regular pipeline of projects. So if people want to watch what happens, I would definitely recommend that you flag these guys, you talk to them, you watch their YouTubes or whatever, and just, you can learn a lot just by following. But if you want to get involved, you can invest.
Yep, absolutely. And you can certainly look at this one by going to the homepage, clicking on the funded there, and you'll be able to download the equity offer document for this project. Obviously, it's a closed raise, but you can sort of learn more about Rosey and Tyler and this particular project that we're talking about, and that will educate you more then for the future. So listen, Tyler and Rosey, thank you very, very much for spending time with us. We'll just let me wrap up now with a reminder about the event next week. If you have any questions, you reach out to myself or John, 7th, 8th and 9th, and it's going to be a fantastic event. And you never know, possibly Tyler and Rosey might make a wee appearance at that and share some more of their knowledge and their wisdom that you've heard from them today. So that's us for today. Again, just absolutely delighted that Tyler and Rosey were able to spend some time with us. I hope you found that beneficial. You tune into the YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch the recording in about an hour's time. And with that, we will end the broadcast and thank everyone for being here once again. Have a great rest of Thursday and a fantastic weekend. All the best, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye now.